Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Good evening. I'm Christina Tobin, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the second event of the 2024 Free and Equal presidential debate series. We are live from Chelsea Television Studios in New York City. I want to begin by thanking Marie Tati for another stunning rendition of our national anthem and the Black national anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And thank you to all of our broadcast and coalition partners for this debate. More Americans identify as independent than as either Republican or Democrat. And that's why we want to amplify more voices and choices, to encourage discourse, to raise awareness of the multitude of choices that voters actually have. Therefore, tonight's debate will feature 5 independent candidates running in this year's presidential election. These candidates were selected by you, the public, through our blockchain voting app powered by Nexus.io. They represent a variety of party affiliations and bring an array of positions to the table. We'll ask some hard-hitting questions on the topics that the mainstream media avoids. In addition, some questions were submitted by the public, ensuring that we cover the issues most important to everyday Americans. At the conclusion of this event, we will host a poll on our website, freeandequal.org, for you to decide the winner of the debate. The poll will be open for 72 hours, so be sure to weigh in with your thoughts during the debate. Please join the conversation using the hashtag #FreeAndEqual. Before we meet our candidates, I'd like to introduce you to my co-moderators for the night. First, she's a former correspondent for One America News Network, Caitlin Sinclair, and a familiar face from last month's Free and Equal, Caitlin Sinclair, excuse me. And we also have from our last month's Free and Equal Democratic debate, Jason Palmer. Caitlin, why did you want to be involved in this event?
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Well, I believe younger voters are increasingly looking for alternatives to classic politicians, to certain policies we have seen for some time now. And in my opinion, you look at the most apathetic group out there right now, the millennials. They don't feel necessarily represented. Again, they're looking for different perspectives. So I'm really excited to highlight this platform for all candidates tonight.
Oh, thank you, Caitlin, for being here and being here for the people, for the youth, and really appreciate that. Thank you. Jason, we're glad to have you back with us, and thank you for your organization Together, which is co-sponsoring tonight's event.
Yeah, thanks so much, Christina. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf both of my own presidential campaign as well as a newly founded B Corporation that I want to announce to all of you. It's called Together, and its goal is to increase youth participation in this year's election as well as future ones. As a fellow presidential candidate, I have experienced firsthand the media and electoral challenges for independent and new candidates who haven't been involved in the traditional parties for a long time. Citizens deserve open access to messaging from all candidates in order to make the best informed decision in the polls, and that's why I was excited to participate in last month's debate and excited to be here tonight so that these additional candidates can be heard by all of you. Now, I may not agree with all of these candidates' viewpoints, but I welcome their opportunity to share their views, and I think it's crucial for our American democracy.
Well, it's great to have Jason here tonight as an example of how the Free and Equal Elections Foundation focuses on unity to bring about solutions. And now let's introduce the participants in tonight's debate. From the Libertarian Party, we have Lars Mapstead. From the Libertarian Party as well, we have Chase Oliver. And also from the Party for Socialism and Liberation, Claudia De La Cruz. From the Green Party, we have Dr. Jill Stein. And also from the Green Party, Jasmine Sherman. And I misspoke before. We also have from the Libertarian Party, Chase Oliver. So we look forward to a lively, respectful exchange of ideas. This debate utilizes the cumulative format established by the League of Women Voters. Each candidate will deliver a 2-minute opening statement. Then we will ask a series of questions, allowing a 2-minute response and a 1-minute rebuttal, or expansion, with each candidate having 4 opportunities for rebuttal. We will also include a few shorter rapid-fire questions as a way to cover even more topics. The debate will conclude with a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate. The order of the candidates was determined by a random draw, and we will begin, starting with Lars Mapstead. Lars, please give us your 2-minute introduction.
Thank you very much. America, when I say the system is rigged, you know that that's true. Are you ready to do something about it? Because I am. I'm pissed off and I'm over it. We need to unrig the system. The entire system is corrupt and only you have the power to unrig it. Our economy is completely rigged. Our government has stolen $34 trillion through the Federal Reserve and the banking cartel. It's reducing your standard of living in the form of inflation. You all feel it every day when you go to the store. The corrupt IRS has been targeting citizens, and we need to end the regime of the corrupt IRS and let people keep 100% of their paycheck. Only you have the power to unrig the system. Our healthcare system is a total joke. It's a total sham. My insurance prices go up and up while the quality of care goes down. We all know that this is a rigged system and it has to be turned upside down. Our criminal justice system, also a total joke. We've had a 50-year war on drugs that is a complete failure. We have to stop the war on drugs, stop criminalizing people for victimless crimes, and treat people with dignity and respect and get the help that they need. What you put in your body is your choice, and the government should have no say in that whatsoever. I am trying to unrig the system in America today because everybody's feeling the pressure, whether it's your education system, whether it's your healthcare system like I talked about. These are all things that are suffering Americans, and I just want to make Americans feel better. The government has just completely shammed the system. And if you could go to my website, lars24.com, you can learn more about my policies to help unrig the system and make it fairer and have more integrity for America. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know what I mean? And y'all cover up with the elites. You know what I mean? Joe Stein,
Excuse me.
I hope we can have a discussion. Let's discuss
Just a
what's
moment.
happened. Right, RFK, where you at? Push me out. Go ahead. $20,000 stolen. People's Party. I'm the New York State coordinator. This is garbage. I'm leaving.
So thank you. Security's taken care of. We don't allow that in the room. Claudia, please.
Thank you so much for having us, Free and Equal Foundation, CHRISTINA TOBIN for organizing this space for broad debate amongst the third-party candidates, a platform that is much necessary in the sham that is democracy in the United States. My name is Claudia De La Cruz, and I am a working-class, second-generation immigrant, mother, organizer, educator, and a proud socialist. I am also a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is a party that has existed for the last 20 years, that has been in the front lines of struggle across different fronts of struggles, everything from defending our rights to housing, our rights to healthcare, against police brutality, against imperialist wars. We are actively engaged all across the country, organizing, educating, and mobilizing working class people to end the dictatorship of the billionaires, which is ultimately the root of our problem. The U.S. does not lack resources. It does not lack the ability to provide housing, create jobs, provide free health care and education for everyone in society. Instead, we have a society that produces misery, that creates 160 million people who are living in or near poverty, that produces over 500,000 people who are living in homelessness. But we have a handful of billionaires and profit makers that are benefiting from our misery and suffering, billionaires and millionaires who profit from the endless war and occupation. We need solutions that meet the scales of the problem. We cannot continue to think that we can reform capitalism. It is urgent to get the billionaire class out of power. Our Vote Socialist 2024 campaign is here to expose the brutality and organize, mobilize for the transformation of society. VoteSocialist2024.com.
Thank you, Claudia. Jill.
Much, and it's great to see you, Christina, again. We've been doing this for 12 years now that I've been participating in your process, and it's a tribute to you, to Free and Equal. We very much need a debate. I'm really enjoying hearing things we don't usually hear back to back next to each other. I think the American public is really desperate for more voices and more choices. This is wonderful. My background is as a medical doctor, where I worked for decades in the clinic, and became very frustrated with how our health really cannot be addressed simply after the fact in the clinic. Tried working upstream on social drivers of illness and discovered that reform is essentially stymied by the powers that be. So I moved from clinical medicine to political medicine to address the mother of all illnesses, our rigged political system that really makes change virtually impossible. So with that, I just want to note that we are in this incredible historic moment right now where the usual order of things, that of empire and oligarchy, is essentially teetering at the brink. And we are all feeling crisis in our lives, in virtually every dimension of our lives. The need for deep change has never been so urgent. But the possibility of that change has never loomed so large. And that's very much, I think, thanks to the actions of people in the listening audience, people who are here tonight, who are really standing up to fight for an end to endless war and genocide, to fight for justice in the workplace, to fight for abolishing student debt, for defending Mother Earth, and to rescue our very embattled civil liberties, which are very much under attack. We need solutions, but solutions are not permissible in the current political environment. So breaking up our zombie duopoly, our zombie political system, is essential, and I look forward to discussing some of the ways to do that tonight. Thank you.
Jasmine.
Good evening. My name is Jasmine Sherman, and I want to get the basics out of the way. I'm fat, I'm black, and I'm a socialist running for president of the United States. I'm not independently wealthy. I'm not invested in the stock market. I'm not living off of a trust fund set up by my rich parents. I'm not looking for a handout, and I'm not up here to make my friends wealthy or write a book. We understand that this election is a black swan event like never before. With the Interstate Voter Compact, a third-party candidate can win. We do not have to pretend that we are trying to move parties to the left or to the right or talk about a rigged system. If you want guaranteed housing, universal health care, free education, and universal basic income, then you will vote for Jasmine Sherman. You can go to jasminesherman.com, and all my policies will be read to you if you don't have time to read them yourselves. We have a chance to reset. Let's reset. We don't need to keep pretending that things need to be researched or evaluated. You know what's wrong. You don't need to hear politicians who are wealthy and are going to go home to their nice houses and their comfortable living tell you about the problems that you experience. You know there's no food in your fridge. You know there's no money in your bank account. What you don't know is who is going to do that and resolve your issues faster. Politicians are wonderful ideas, but what you need is change. You don't need some icon. You need someone that is going to make sure that you can feed your family, educate your children, spend time with them. Right now, our country is at the precipice, and we need to push it forward. If you actually want to do something, I would recommend that you listen to the candidates that have a plan to put money in your pocket tomorrow. And if you are not interested, at least begin mutual aid where you live. Go to jasminesherman.com for more details and to donate, because we have work to do. Oh, I'm done with my
Thank
time.
you. Thank you, Jasmine. Chase. That's great.
So thank you very much for having me here to speak with the other candidates. I imagine we're going to have a great discussion here. I think we probably agree on a lot of problems that are facing this nation. It might be solutions where we have
Hold Chase for a moment.
what's that?
They cannot hear you in the mic.
Oh.
So 1 moment.
Can y'all hear me now?
There, we're good. Please start over, Chase.
All right. So I wanted to say thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to debate here today. I imagine many of the folks on stage are going to have a lot of agreement about the problems that face this nation. It is our solutions where we might have some differences. But my name is Chase Oliver. I want to be the Libertarian candidate for President of the United States because I know people are getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. Over 60% of voters have said they are willing to vote for a candidate who is not named Donald Trump or Joe Biden. And I think third parties and independents need to seize on this opportunity to bring new voters out, new solutions to the table. And as a libertarian, my solutions are pretty much rooted in the idea of freedom. If you are living your life in peace and you're not committing force, fraud, coercion, theft, or violence, your life is your life, your body is your body, your business is your business, and your property is your property, not the property or business of an overly abusive and intrusive government that we've seen frankly, my entire adult life. Now, I'm 39 years old. I'm half Donald Trump's age. And that's important because my generation is a generation that has had to grow up fighting the war on terror. My generation is the generation that, as we got started in this process, the entire real estate market fell out from underneath us as big banks got bailed out and the regular guy got screwed over. And it's my generation right now that is trying to raise families all over the country with record runaway inflation that is caused by the overly abusive and intrusive and massive federal government that continues to stifle growth. I got started in politics being an anti-war advocate. I'm anti-war to the core, and that means I oppose the warfare state as it exists all over the world, and we need to bring our troops back home. We need to have our military removed from every continent and every place that is the United States of America, because the only purpose of a military is to protect us from invasion. I'm also somebody who believes in the rights of free movement of immigrants. We have an immigration crisis at our southern border, but it's not the immigrants that cause that crisis. It's the government who refuses to allow immigrants to come here and work and start their American dream just like the rest of us. And I've also been a criminal justice reform advocate. People should be on a level playing field with law enforcement and the government when they're getting their day in court, and that's not happening today due to qualified immunity and other things. Go to votechaseoliver.com to see my full platform. I'm looking forward to discussing it.
Thank you, Chase. Question 1, immigration. Reflecting the voice of the electorate, we have curated questions directly from the public for today's debate. The first question, chosen for its relevance and the widespread concern, is from Frankie Lozada. Given the evolving tactics of drug cartels, including the use of advanced technology, underground tunnels, and the smuggling of narcotics and human trafficking through legal, that is, port of entry, what innovative approaches do you conceive to stay ahead of these criminal organizations and safeguard our borders while protecting Americans and the vulnerable populations often exploited by drug cartels for smuggling purposes? Jasmine.
One of the things that my platform does is recognize that there isn't an immigrant crisis at the border. There is destabilization that the United States of America continues to cause worldwide. What we need to do is decriminalize all substance abuse items. We need to put safe use centers in every zip code. We need to give people universal health care with dental, vision, and it must be in your zip code. You must have access. And it also should include your prescriptions and holistic care. By making sure that we go ahead and make the country easy to access, the same way it was easy to access when people were coming into Ellis Island, we would not have a border crisis. What we need to do is make sure that we provide more medical staff, treat drug issues like the chemical dependency problem and the disease that they are. Instead of us pretending that these problems are bigger and not solvable, we have the funds to do it. What we don't have is leaders willing to put doctors in every zip code. We don't have leaders who are not trying to play nice with the bad guy. And I can tell you right now, we all know who the bad guys are. We need younger leadership. We need more direction. And what we need to do is treat Americans the way they want to be treated. I understand that we have allowed our government to make us think that people are flooding our borders and allow us to think that America is under invasion, but that's not accurate. We have tons of room in this country for more people. We had tons of room when people were taking over and genociding indigenous peoples here. The way we fix this is by making sure we have universal health care, a reformed immigration system, and put money back in Americans' pockets so we're not pitted against each other like we currently are trying to do. There is space for all of us. The difference is all of us need to be working towards making this country better. So, I'm done with my statement.
Chase.
So I think the point of your question is great. You know, he talks about how we're digging tunnels and getting around. This is the perfect example of why we don't need a giant Berlin Wall on our southern border full of razor wire that is stealing people's property to actually build that wall. I absolutely oppose it. We need to have an Ellis Island style immigration system. You should be able to come through a port of entry, do a quick check to determine that you're not wanted for extradition or something to that nature, and then come right in here and get to work, because there are jobs that need to be filled. There are people who are willing to do that jobs, and we need to quit getting government in the way of those people. If you look at the number of businesses that are created by native-born or first-generation immigrants, or the amount of people in the Fortune 500 companies, immigrants actually improve our economy. They increase the economic pie for all of us. So I want to get government out of the way of immigration. But you're talking about defunding cartels. The best way to do that is to completely eliminate the war on drugs and remove the profit motive for cartels south of our border. We want to talk about getting rid of human trafficking. Well, if we allowed people to come through ports of entry very easily using this Ellis Island model, we would be able to put our law enforcement focus on those people practicing human trafficking. Let the 99.9% of peaceful people in, and let that small sliver of human traffickers being taken down by law enforcement. Now, I do want to say this. We see in the media all the time attacking immigrants. They're going to take our jobs. They're going to dilute our culture. They're going to harm our country. Those are the exact same slanders that were thrown against our immigrant forefathers who came here through Ellis Island. They came here from Germany and from Ireland and from Italy and all over Europe. And now they're coming from the south of the border and everywhere else. We should be welcoming them here. They are the next generation of Americans that can be the next generation of American entrepreneurs, business owners, people who create jobs, people who create prosperity. But as long as we keep government in the way of this process, it stifles that growth. So I'm somebody who believes in, I don't believe in the scare tactics of immigrants. I live near them, I go to church with them, and frankly, it's ridiculous to me that anybody would try to stop good, hardworking people from wanting to come into our country and start their American dream the same way 40% of our country did. 40% of our people can trace their roots right back to Ellis Island. We need to return that process to the United States and get government out of the way.
Thank you. Claudia?
Well, I reject the premise of the question. The premise of the question is that immigrants are criminals, and immigrants are workers that have been displaced by wars, sanctions, and climate crisis that U.S. capitalism and U.S. imperialism has accelerated and created in those countries. It is very interesting that today marks the 20-year anniversary of the U.S.-backed coup in Haiti, for example. It is very important for us to understand what the United States did and continues to do in places like Haiti. The United States has stolen the ability for the socialist project of Cuba to develop itself, stealing from its economy $15 million a day, close to $160 billion for over 60 years. That strangles the economy of a country. It moves and forces people to leave following the traces of the things that have been stolen from them. And so if we want to be able to mitigate the immigration crisis, which happens to be a crisis now, but it wasn't an immigration crisis when the European settlers that came into this nation and displaced the indigenous people, that wasn't an immigration crisis, but so far it happens to be now because it's also racialized and it's also gendered. And so when we think about immigration, we need to think about foreign policy and the ways in which the United States has, through its imperialist mechanisms, displaced people. 60 million people across the world are moving because of war, sanctions, and climate change. We want to change that. We want to protect the borders. The best thing we could do is get out of other people's nations. Our socialist solution is building foreign policy that is built in collaboration, that is built in bringing back the troops, closing the 800 military bases all across the globe, shutting down NATO, shutting down AFRICOM, the Southern Command, and actually putting those soldiers that are out there doing the bidding of capitalism in this country to do meaningful work.
Lars.
Thank you so much. I love that you framed it in the form of the cartels, because this is the problem that I see in America today. Prohibition doesn't work. We had prohibition in the 30s around alcohol. And what did that create? That created Al Capone. Okay? The government creates monopolies in crime when they prohibit things. And they have created a monopoly for the cartels. And if you're in business, what do you do when you're in business? You try to increase your sales and your production. So the cartels are in the business of selling drugs, and they are pushing drugs on Americans. I believe that the 50-year failed war on drugs has created more drug users than it has stopped. It's time to end this failure. Throwing some more people in jail and spending some more money on the problem is not going to fix the problem. We have to deschedule drugs at the federal level and end the cartels altogether. This is going to solve a big part of the problem at our southern border. We have chaos at our southern border because of the federal government's policies at the southern border. The cartels are disrupting the people south of the border, and they're fleeing the violence and crime that comes with the cartels. So by eliminating them, we can get rid of a lot of the problem. But there's still chaos at the border. So what we need to do is we need to streamline the system so that people can come here easily, find work easily, and be legal in this country, just like my ancestors were able to try to come and find the American dream. And I agree with Claudia, we need to stop the imperialism in America. We need to stop projecting ourselves all over the world. We need to close down those 800 bases that she was talking about. And what we could do is we could use that money to create an energy race that would lower the cost of energy across America, and not only that, would lower the cost of energy across the world, and that would start lifting people up all over the world without America spending any more money.
Thank you. Jill.
Many points of agreement here. I completely agree this crisis of immigration is a crisis that has been created really by the United States of America through our foreign policy, through our economic domination, and through climate change, where we have been the major contributor to the destabilization of the climate. And on the issue of economic destabilization, consider, for example, the number of immigrants that have come from Guatemala. Well, where did that originate? You know, that was about doing a favor for United Fruit and overthrowing the democratically elected government of Guatemala, but way back in the 1950s, in order to prevent redistribution of land so that poor people and peasants would have a means of survival, basically. And that model has been repeated over and over again. It's been documented, for example, that the U.S. has conducted regime change, largely covertly through the CIA, approximately 70 times since the Second World War. That doesn't even include the wars that we have conducted, which are, of course, another source of really drastic destabilization and the source of migrants. And it's worth, reminding people that this foreign policy based on economic domination, it has a name. It's called full spectrum dominance. It says the quiet part out loud, that the United States specifically through its military and the Pentagon has declared that we will dominate all regions of the globe at all times in all spheres of potential conflict. And we assert that power. We are asserting that power right now in the Middle East, where Israel was long ago declared the unsinkable battleship for the United States, essentially safeguarding access to oil, which way back when we needed that oil. Now we don't need that oil, but we still want to basically control that oil. So this is about reforming U.S. policy and ending the spigot that's driving this migration crisis.
Thank you so much. Any rebuttals? Excuse me. Any rebuttals before we move on to the next question?
I would just like to say that all of America is tired of watching moms and babies crawl under barbed wire at the southern border. We're tired of seeing children separated from their families. As a parent, that devastates me. And we can do better, America. We can do better. We need to end the chaos at the border.
Great. Let's move on to question 2. In your opening statement, Chase, and this one starts with you by random lot, but you did mention that criminal justice reform was an important part of your agenda. There's a growing movement against what some call the prison industrial complex. America has many more people in prisons and jails per capita than every country in the world except China. Do you think there's a crime wave? And how would you rethink our criminal laws and penalties for the 21st century? What steps would you take to ensure that prisons are more focused on rehabilitation? Take it where you may.
No, I don't think we're in the middle of a crime wave. I actually think we're in the middle of an over-criminalization wave. We have far too many things that are illegal in this country where there's no victim. We've mentioned the war on drugs. I can mention consensual sex work. Any other behavior where you're not hurting another person should be absolutely legal. And we throw so many people in jail for this. And it creates trauma. When you take somebody who's an addict and you remove them, you arrest them, you throw them in jail, you traumatize them throughout that process. You don't give them any help. Then they get back on the street. What's the first thing they do? They go to alleviate that trauma with the drugs. This creates a cycle that is ruining so many communities in this country, particularly communities of color and those who don't have the means to fight back when the government tries to take them down. And so I support changing the entire way we think about criminal justice from every step of the way. Starting when you talk to a police officer, you should have no qualified immunity for police, because if you're done wrong, you should get your day in court. Officers should be required to carry liability insurance. So when they do wrong and there's a settlement against them, that comes out of their insurance policy, not out of the other taxpayer-funded systems in a local government. We need to do things like ending the death penalty, ending mandatory minimums, ending private prisons. I'm a libertarian. I don't believe the government should do a lot, but one of those things should be criminal justice, and I want to remove the profit motive for having people shoved into beds for prisons. So I oppose private prisons. And from every step of the way, through even release and probation and the kinds of abuses and the fact that people are paying hundreds of dollars a month to be monitored by the state when really they probably shouldn't have even been arrested in the first place, I absolutely want to change this. But no, we're not in a crime wave. We're in a media-generated fear wave. That's what the two parties want you to be. They want you to be afraid when you go to the ballot box, because when you're scared, it's easier to control you. I don't want to be afraid of people. I trust that most people are good people, and that if given the chance, they'd be able to live their lives in peace without the interference of government. And so, yeah, remove the overcriminalization of our society, end qualified immunity, and get ourselves back to a truly just justice system that treats people equal in the court of law and doesn't give government a hand up.
Chase. Thanks, Chase. We're going to work our way across on this one. So, Jasmine?
My platform abolishes police and prisons. We switch to a home type system where you have someone at a home, because my platform also gives everybody guaranteed housing. When it comes to preserving police and prisons, we think that it's time to stop dehumanizing Americans. Anyone who has questions about my policy can read it at jasminesherman.com or have it read to them. However, it is time to switch to a house arrest system with a community task force. Defunding and abolishing the police is our first step. There's no reason for a stranger who doesn't live in your zip code to be patrolling your neighborhoods. It makes more sense for us to start community task force and pay the individual within the community to watch their own neighborhoods, to watch their own children. And that helps to stimulate the economy and create jobs and keeps people at home where they want to be.
Thank you. Jill?
Indeed, we are indeed an over-criminalizing society. The vast majority of people who are incarcerated have done no violent crime. The majority is there for nonviolent drug crimes. And, you know, this just creates all sorts of knockoff problems. For the cost of incarcerating someone, we could be providing them with a college education and ensuring that they have, you know, a positive role and skills to be contributing members of society. In addition to our extremely oppressive and criminalizing drug laws, we should also be addressing the basically poverty and the causes of impoverishment and the desperation that drives petty crime. But whenever mentioning petty crime, one should be mindful that petty crimes are so small compared to corporate crime and the routine ripoff of the public interest by Wall Street and large billionaires who also received enormous subsidies from the public by way of tax breaks. The corporate contribution to our taxes, in fact, used to be about 6% of GDP. After the Second World War, it's now 1% of GDP. So in giving away the store to the most fortunate, those who are essentially rolling in profit, we have essentially de-invested in our communities, in our schools, in healthcare, and so on, and created a desperate environment that often leaves people little choice other than a criminal enterprise, particularly drug sales. So by legalizing drugs and providing for strong communities, we can essentially massively reduce the incarceration, and people should also be pardoned and released from jail where drugs are being now legalized.
On to Claudia.
Thank you.
We need to understand the very basis, the very foundation of the criminal justice system in this country, of the incarceration system of this country, and it's based precisely on private property, and it's based precisely on the control and the surveillance of people. There was no abolition of slavery in this country. There was the differentiation of the transference of methodology. People in prison still do cheap labor for this country. We need to abolish the prison industrial complex that has a profit motive. We need to be able to understand security in our communities as housing, as employment, as healthcare, as education. Those are the things that we need. And we need to also understand that the majority of crimes, as Jill mentioned, the majority of crimes are crimes of survival. People trying to make ends meet in this country. And so we need to be clear that when we're talking about mass incarceration, it does not protect society. When we're talking about policing and the increase in budgets that happens every year, so the police departments all across the country does not provide security. It provides violence and brutality in our communities. 2023, we saw the record highs of police brutalities in our community. And so we need to be able to understand the very roots to deal with the problem and not just the symptom. If we want to be able to abolish prisons, we need to abolish capitalism. If we want to abolish policing, we need to abolish capitalism, and we need to provide a society, create a society that is able to provide us with all our basic and human rights so that we have a reduction in crime. Because guess what? Sociologists talk about that. Where there is less need for people to cover their needs, there is less crimes. And so we want less crimes. We want to be able to provide for our people.
Thank you, Claudia. Lars?
Thank you. Clearly, the criminal justice system is rigged. We see this in the upper echelons of our government right now, where Congress people and upper elites are able to get away with things that normal people would never get away with, that we would all find ourselves in prison with, yet somehow there's multi-tiers of justice based on who you know and how much money you have. We need to level the playing field. And some of the ways that we can level the playing field and unrig the system is we can end qualified immunity so that police cannot hide behind their badge, that if they do something that is bad, they get held accountable. We have to get rid of the profit motive for them, and we can do this by ending civil asset forfeiture, which allows for police to basically take from people without really due process and take their possessions, and that's how they can oftentimes fund their own departments, and this puts money in their pockets, and it's clearly a rigged system. Obviously, I talked about the ending the failed war on drugs. I think that puts a lot of people in prison that don't need to be there. And to Claudia's point, desperate people do desperate things. And there's a lot of people in America that are suffering financially and economically due to the way that our government system is run. So we need to lift those people up. We need to improve our economy for all people. I grew up really poor with an outhouse and no electricity, and I was able to live the American dream and go on to found a very large and successful company. I want all Americans to be able to get to that level of success. I want all Americans to be lifted up and have a standard of living that we can all be proud of. We used to have that before, and I call for an end to the Federal Reserve because I believe that the Federal Reserve is one of the key institutions that is creating wealth inequality and income inequality in America by stealing money from regular folks and handing it to the banking cartel, and that goes to the corporations. By the time it trickles down to the rest of us, we get a few pennies on the dollar. We need to embrace our economy, lift it up, embrace my energy race, and really get this economy going, abolish the IRS. We can get the economy going and lift everybody up, and there'll be a lot less crime.
Thank you, Lars. Does anybody want to offer a rebuttal to something that was said by another? Yes, Claudia?
I don't want to rebuttal, but I do want to take the time to mention the political prisoners that have been imprisoned by the capitalist system because they have done things for the right, for the right of people, for Black liberation, for Indigenous liberation. We have folks that cannot have full lives like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange because the United States of America refuses to understand that not everything that is legal is legitimate. Not everything that is legal is right. And that we have the right to create the level of society that allows us to live in dignity. And this is what these political prisoners have done. Mumia Abu-Jamal, Leonard Peltier, the Black liberation movement, freedom fighters that after coming out of being kidnapped by the state have failed health system and die. The United States government, Republicans, Democrats, the ruling class of this country are killing our people and they are caging them. We need to stop that.
Chase?
I just wanted to speak to a couple of the comments that have been made here, particularly about corporate control of our law enforcement. I'm from Atlanta. I'm part of the Stop Cop City movement in Atlanta. And, you know, they try to slander us by saying we're from out-of-towners. But the truth is the people who are out of town are the corporate funders of the Atlanta Police Foundation that are getting Cop City built right now. And so it's important for people to unite together across the political spectrum, across left and right. It's not a left versus right issue, it's a right versus wrong issue. And when we talk about the 13th Amendment and the fact that we have legalized, constitutionalized slavery in this country, I read a story yesterday about a young man who worked for 136 hours and sent his prison money that he worked 136 hours to the people of Gaza for relief. How much money did he get sent? Under $18 because he was paid 1.3 cents an hour for his labor. We do have slave labor in this country. If you live in Louisiana, your governor's mansion is being cleaned, vacuumed, and the toilets being scrubbed by prison labor. And so it's important for us to speak up that the government is abusing people, and corporations, large corporate interests, are the people who are invested in making sure that we are subjugated by our government, and we should oppose it at every level.
Claudia raised her hand slightly before you, Jill, but we'll get to you. No.
Jasmine?
Sorry, Jasmine. Yeah, you're next, actually.
Thank you very much. I just wanted America to know my platform is the only one that ends prisons and lets everybody out of jail and then keeps people from going to jail. That's it, I'm done.
To you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on the subject of Cop City that what we're seeing in Cop City is actually the criminalization of political beliefs, the criminalization of community resistance to the destruction of its rare environmental recreation space, which is being systematically destroyed in order to further criminalize militarize the police department. So, you know, this is exactly what's wrong. And it is essentially criminalizing people who are now charged with terrorism charges, essentially for attempting to protect their open space and their forest, and who've now been subject to RICO charges and who are at risk for enormous criminal penalties and long-term jail sentences. And unfortunately, this is not the only example of it. This is a growing trend, really, of political repression that goes hand in hand with the growing hammer of censorship, and which is part of just this very oppressive political environment that we are now fighting, which is bipartisan and which really demands our resistance and our unified opposition.
All right, moving on, I just want to make a quick note. We won't be able to get to all of the public questions, so we're going to encourage our candidates and invite you all to join us on Twitter after the debate, or X, I should say. The handle is @FreeAndEqual to maybe answer some more questions. Moving on here, our question from the public is, how will you ensure that tribal nations are adequately protected beyond recognizing broken tribal treaties and land acknowledgements? What will you do to address the severe systemic inequality on indigenous reservations across the United States? What steps would you take in returning land back to indigenous nations? And how would you reinforce indigenous sovereignty and self-determination? We are going to start with Claudia.
I think that the United States ruling class has a historic debt with the indigenous people of this country. Reparations are the call. We need to be able to provide reparations not only to the indigenous people of this country, but also to the Black Americans, because this country was founded on the genocide and the displacement of indigenous people, but it was also on the backs of enslaved Africans that were brought here to build this country. And so we have a historic debt with indigenous people and Black Americans. We believe that it is important to restore the treaties that have been broken over and over and over again. And we have to level the playing, which means that we need to work to rebuild those communities. The levels of suicide, of substance abuse are in the hands of the many administrations that have come through. Again, the ruling class that extracts and steals the land from these communities. And so when we're talking about a socialist solution, we're talking about understanding and assuming the historic responsibility that we have with those communities. Land that belongs to the indigenous communities should be given back. being able to provide the resources necessary for the indigenous community is an immediate call. And being able, again, to level the playing field and provide for those communities that have been brutally and violently placed in the conditions of poverty that they are right now. I still have 20 seconds, but okay, you can have it.
Do you want to continue?
That's good.
Okay, Jill, we're going to move on to you.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Those broken treaties need to be restored, land back, particularly large open space areas and forests and natural regions and rivers that are traditionally part of indigenous territories which were stolen from them. They should be managed by indigenous people. No one would do it better. Case in point, indigenous lands are classic for being subject to extraction and destruction and enormous pollution. In Standing Rock, for example, in North Dakota, the pipeline going through Standing Rock put at risk the entire Mississippi River and the drinking water for something like 20 million people. And the same is true now with the Mountain Valley Pipeline, in fact. These are all invading indigenous territories, and it's the indigenous nations who are really leading the fight, not only to protect their sovereignty, not only to protect their land, but really to essentially provide stewardship for us all in fighting to keep the air clean and the water clean. They are basically fighting for us all, and they have the traditional and indigenous wisdom to know the absolute critical nature of this, of these resources. One of the activists that we have worked with the Green Party in South Dakota, made the comment the other day that the U.S. and Western culture measures wealth in terms of how much you have. But among indigenous cultures, your wealth is measured by how much you give away. And that's really consistent with their understanding of the invaluable nature of our resources. And in particular, their sovereignty must be respected before their natural resources are exploited in any way whatsoever.
Thank you. Thank you. Lars, we'll move on to you next.
Okay, thank you very much. The government has broken many promises to all kinds of people over the years. I'm reminded of a mule and an acre of land after the Civil War was done. I'm reminded about how the government placed the Native Americans into Oklahoma and into various states there. And then when they found resources in those areas, they decided that that was no longer their land and that they would move them off to some other land. And we continue with this practice today with eminent domain laws, where the government seizes people's property for the common good, as it were. And what they do is they displace these people that have worked hard for their land, that have put sweat and tears into their land, and take that and give it to the private sector or to the government. And I believe that this policy is a continuation of this. And so for Native Americans, there's been a great disservice. For Black Americans, there's been a great disservice over and over again. And the government hasn't changed its ways. So in order to fix this, we have to at least stop the government from behaving the way that it does, and stop infringing on people's rights, and stop taking their land. This is something that just goes on over and over again. We have to respect the treaties that we have put in place. And where there has been damage that can be shown, it should be rectified through the court system. And look, the thing is that Native Americans have been given a bad lot. African Americans have been given a bad lot, and they are suppressed economically because our government stole their lands, stole their ability to have a good economic prosperity. And so we need to lift up all these people by helping our economy grow so that it lifts all people up. And I have several plans to do that. You can find it on lars24.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Lars. Chase, on to you next.
So when we're talking about the issue of tribal sovereignty, you're right. The baseline is to start respecting the treaties that have been made over the years that have been continuously broken over and over by the United States government. When a wrong is done, you do have to rectify that through some sort of recompense. I do believe that can come in the form of land. And In fact, we have a lot of federal land that used to be tribal sovereign land that we could return back to them for the wrongs we've done to the community. I think there's there's a completely legal way, a framework to get that done. But what I want to talk about is the fact that from the smallpox blankets onward, we as in the Western world have been treating indigenous people like crap. Let's be real. And you see this in communities all over the country that have suffered due to poverty, substance abuse, and all kinds of things. And this all relates back to the original sin of the treatment of indigenous people. So I would seek to respect tribal sovereignty 100%. As Jill mentioned, I don't want people putting a pipeline on tribal land unless the tribe wants it there and they have determination over that land. And if they are going to be selling that land, it should be paid to the tribe. It shouldn't be taken away from them by eminent domain and other processes. But it starts with respecting the fact that tribal sovereignty should be absolute. It should be their land. And frankly, I support the right of tribal people. If they want to secede from the government of the United States, they should have every single right to do it. And we should not stop them one bit. Absolutely.
Jasmine, go ahead.
In America, police solve less than 4% of crime. But if they did solve a crime, let's say you bought a stolen car, they would make you give the stolen property you purchased back. We need to give land back. My platform provides people with guaranteed housing because we give the land back. That means no rent, no mortgage. We can't just say, we're gonna give indigenous people sovereignty, and then not. We're not gonna just say, we're gonna give indigenous people their federal lands. They need more than that. They want all of their stolen property back. That does not mean it evicts people from their homes. What it does is it allows you to remain in your home and they have stewardship over the land. What that means is you would get all the money you spent on purchasing your home back and still be able to remain in your domicile. What this also means is we end the occupation of Hawaii, the occupation of Guam. We also give Puerto Rico their land back. We have to act like we really do apologize. And we can't do that by giving somebody a piece of something. If you came to my house and you took anything, I would want everything you took back. It wouldn't be a polite conversation about what is mine that you took. The same situation where we're seeing in Palestine, where Israel has invaded and occupied their land, is the same thing that we did to indigenous people right here. So I'm not going to pretend, and my VP, Tanda Bluebear, and I have been working with indigenous tribes around the country to write a land back policy with their voice in part. If you are indigenous and you would like to participate in writing that land back policy, go to JasmineSherman.com. Your voice matters. This is yours, and we want to give it back. For Americans who are only worried about themselves, we're not kicking you out. You will have housing, you will have health care, and you will have education. You won't have rent anymore, and you won't have mortgages. We can do things differently if we stopped funding Israel, where we pay rent and health care and education for them.
Thank you, Jasmine. Before we move on, any rebuttals? Claudia, I think your hand went up first.
I want to add Guantanamo. Guantanamo needs to be given back to the Cuban people. The decolonization of Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the decolonization of every nation that the United States has its hands and grip on, because they are neo-colonies, even though we don't talk about those. I think it's important to make the distinction between U.S. imperialist and capitalist government and socialist governments. Not all governments are made the same.
Jill, go ahead.
And I just wanted to extend the connection between the indigenous people of the United States, that is the First Nations of the United States, and the indigenous people of Gaza, just noting that there is a very active and horrific genocide that is underway right now. Regrettably, you know, there's a horrific history of genocide of indigenous people in this country. And that is ongoing, though low grade, but that continues the oppression and the hardships, the sickness, the poverty, the drug addiction, and so on. There is active harm to indigenous people in this country that needs to be rectified, but there's also a very active, full-blown genocide going on in Gaza right now, and it's very critical that we call that to an immediate halt and cease all funding for the State of Israel, stop supplying weapons, and basically apply a national BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions program towards Israel.
And
I just wanted to add really quickly, there's a Bureau of Indian Affairs in our government. I think it's high time the United States government gets completely out of the affairs of Native people, so it's completely shut down the Bureau of Indian Affairs, completely.
Thank you all.
Just want to comment that it's super interesting that we have 2 socialists, 2 libertarians, and a Green Party candidate on stage.
I'm also a Green Party candidate, sir.
Oh,
and I'm a
okay.
socialist. You can do both.
Both. Apologies. Apologies.
you.
Apologies. But you all agreed quite a bit on those first 3 questions, on the indigenous people question we just finished, on immigration and criminal justice. I'm hoping the next question can maybe get a little bit of debate between you all. So on environmental policy, and this one will start with you, Jill. With PFAS and other forever chemicals contaminating the drinking water of 3,000 communities and affecting an estimated 200 million Americans, what actions would your administration take to hold the responsible parties accountable for this pollution? And then furthermore, how would you ensure the cleanup of these toxic substances to prevent further contamination, despite potential opposition from those big corporate industries that you all have been talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And our administration would put great priority on not only cleaning up those communities, those water sources, these aquifers, related especially to military bases, which have been the major source of contamination, and reflects again how dangerous militarization of the country is and the many ways in which it harms us. But it's really important that people understand the threat that PFAS causes. And while much is not known yet, it needs to be investigated, and people need to be informed about the risks that we are all incurring. But I think it's really important that we not confine our attention simply to one chemical, because PFAS is one in a very long line of very toxic and polluting substances. The first classic one, of course, was lead, and it actually took almost a century of lead harm to children. In the early 1900s, there was thought to be an epidemic affecting young children. Nobody knew why they were suddenly having strokes. Well, it turned out these children were having strokes because lead paint had just entered the market and was being used in the outdoor porches of homes, this brightly colored paint, which also tasted very sweet. So this is by way of illustrating that the system does not protect us. We've had so many incidents, one after the other. There again, was the case of Love Canal and dioxin and toxic waste sites that basically came back to haunt us. We are finding these over and over again. We're seeing it now in East Palestine, where there has been a spill of extremely toxic chemicals, which were ignited when they should not have been, and they did not need to be. And the EPA is actually colluding with the railroad company in order to do a cover-up, and the community has undergone great harm. So this is really a case in point of how we need a regulatory system that is not serving our corporations, but are serving the public.
Next up on this question would be Chase.
Yeah, so, there is a vested interest in each person for wanting to breathe clean air and drink clean water. And I think, right now, what we have is we have government giving slaps on the wrist to people. We have tort caps, we have fine caps, we have all these caps for people that don't really cover the true breadth of the damage that people are doing. I believe if you're being done wrong, you should be able to seek recompense in court. That's why we have courts to adjudicate disputes, particularly in civil court. But what we have right now is we have tort caps. So when someone sues and they're given cancer or some sort of horrible disease, they're given a few $100,000 as if that pays for the price that's been done to this person. So I support removing all tort caps so polluters can actually pay when they go to court, as opposed to getting a slap on the wrist, which is what we've had my entire life. And it's not led to cleaner air and cleaner water when you give that protection to polluters. And I would also speak to the fact that if we want to live in a cleaner world, we have to stop letting government pick winners and losers with regards to energy. What kind of energy is most subsidized by the government today? Carbon-based energy, oil, natural gas, other things. I don't like government picking winners and losers in the marketplace. I would deregulate energy entirely, particularly nuclear energy, so that we can get more of that online, which burns clean, can provide so much power, certainly more than, say, a natural gas or coal or anything else, and also is much safer. and people are scared of 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl, but I remind them, those are very rare things. We only see that once in a generation. But what we see is we see thousands of coal miners who have died from lung disease. We see thousands of people suffering asthma and all sorts of effects from carbon-based fuels. So I would like to see us get back to sensible policy, remove those tort caps, and let polluters actually pay when they do something wrong.
Thanks. On to Lars.
I think I've uncovered a new rigged system, listening to all my panelists here. The government is doing a piss poor job of taking care of people and of protecting people from harms that are corporations. And why is that? That is because the government, the Congress essentially, bros out corporations with tax code. With the tax code, they're able to give favors to the rich and to the elites. And then those corporations are basically in cahoots with our government. And that is why they're able to get away with these things that we're talking about, where they're able to cover up things, where they're able to mask things and to reduce the penalties that might come. If we let the market take care of itself, the communities will be able to rise up and will be able to be taken care of. We have to let our government function. And part of that for me is that we can't have career politicians because career politicians lead to corruption. So I'm in favor of term limits. I don't think that people should be in office for 40 or 50 years because that lets them get in bed with these corporations much more, and that leads to these bad outcomes. So we need to limit our government as the founding fathers wanted us to do, and this will get rid of some of these problems. But look, there's always seems to be some new product that's coming out to market that's the new thing, and whether it's asbestos or lead or whatever it is, and we don't always know what's coming. Cigarettes, for example, you know, it was people thought cigarettes were healthy for a long time, right? And then it became clear that it was not. So we need to have a mechanism for us to go after those corporations when they harm us so that they're more careful when they're making their products, right? But right now we have a bureaucracy that shields them from being held accountable. And we need to end that bureaucracy by reducing the government and getting term limits. Thank you.
Thanks, Lars. Jasmine?
All right, you guys. I am so excited. You need to know about my triple bottom line accounting policy. I'm not just pitching big ideas. Everything that you are going to hear me say tonight has a tangible policy, a step-by-step plan of transactions. Americans cannot wait for someone to get into office, to come up with an idea, and then have Congress and the Senate ignore it. Americans need to know what they're getting into right now. We already have politicians that make false promises. When it comes to the environment, my triple bottom accounting policy tackles the environmental concerns that corporations have done and the human damage that corporations have done. And we go back 37 years. I want my money from GM, I want it from GE, and I want it from Amazon. If you go to JasmineSherman.com, you will see the list of them. I also need people to understand we need to keep all of our fossil fuels in the ground. My platform, a different policy called the Environmental and Infrastructure Plan, does that. We switch to renewable energies. We go ahead and make every single state, every single city, every single town ADA compliant. That allows us to put renewable kinetic pads on sidewalks because everybody forgets about the disabled. Everybody forgets that COVID is still a thing. I'd only have my mask off because the amazing Christina was like, people want to see your face. And I agree. Everything is connected. The pipes are dirty. So we need to get clean water to everyone. We can't do that through the ground. So go look at my policies and review how we give you clean water without costing you more money. Everybody who's listening to me is like, that's probably expensive. My tax policy is posted as well. Oh, and we need a high-speed rail. And that puts Americans back to work. It stimulates the economy. I'm done.
Thank you, Jasmine. On to Claudia.
I think it's very important to understand that when we're talking about the climate crisis, it's connected to many of the human crises, social and economic crises that we experience. And so we cannot attempt to regulate corporations that run this country. We can't. We need to seize those corporations and make them public utilities. We have to give these corporations back to the workers to decide how the wealth that is being created is going to be utilized. And one of the ways in which that could be done is precisely one of the ways that the climate crisis could be tackled in doing that is precisely having, for example, the decommodification and decolonization of energy resources, being able to shift from the carbon and the oil to renewable. But we also need to be able to understand, and Jill mentioned this, the Pentagon is one of the biggest polluters in the world. And I believe that cutting 90% of the military expense could do a huge service to the environment. It is important also to take out the profit motive of many of these so-called corporations that are going green now, because that's also a trend. They go green, but in reality, what they're trying to do is accumulate wealth. Energy, for example, these cars that run on energy are becoming a source of profit and cumulative, profit for these companies. And so we need to be able to, again, extract the wealth from these billionaires that are making profit in these corporations that are extracting from the land and are creating the climate crisis that we're currently experiencing.
Thank you, Claudia. Does anybody want to rebut anybody else in what they said?
I haven't spoken yet.
Oh, my apologies. I think you started us with the PFAS or PFAS.
That's true. And then we shifted to energy. So let me speak on energy briefly.
Sure, you have a rebuttal.
Yeah, in fact, I'd like to address some of the issues that were raised here. For example, on nuclear, it's really important to understand that without enormous public subsidies, nuclear would not exist. Nuclear is dangerous, dirty, extremely expensive, and cannot survive without public subsidies, and it's also uninsurable. And the reason nuclear plants are not being built is because they wind up being huge holes in the ground, which cost billions of dollars. So nuclear is really not an option. And in terms of whether there is some government program that directs us towards green energy, I think that it's really important to understand that we have a crisis here of monumental proportions. And just for one example, understand that the Colorado River is about to run dry. And when it does, the California agriculture system goes down with it, and that is half of the fruits and vegetables for this country. So this is not something that can just be left to the market. It cannot be left to independent corporations. There needs to be public planning and ownership of the major infrastructure to ensure our survival.
Yeah. So allow me to defend nuclear energy for a moment here. First, the reason why nuclear energy is so expensive and the startup costs are so great is because of the overregulation of the marketplace. Nuclear energy is not dangerous. Modern nuclear technology is far safer than carbon-based fuels that get trillions and trillions of dollars over my lifetime of subsidy. Now, if we want to solve the climate change crisis, if we want to get ourselves off of carbon-based fuel, there is no way to do that without using nuclear power. Today, the technology does not exist to fully replace our entire power infrastructure with renewable energy. I wish it were, but it isn't. But we have the ability to harness the power of nuclear energy that does not put any carbon into the air. It is clean, it is safe, it is effective, and today's technology in nuclear shows a much smaller footprint than the 3 Mile Islands or Chernobyls of scare tactics of the past. Today's modern new technology can have a smaller footprint, can produce more power, and be safer for each and every American.
I'm not sure of the rule on this. Can it go back to Jill again?
Yes, one more rebuttal.
One more rebuttal. Jill,
rebuttal.
this would be your last rebuttal if you rebut that.
Yeah, I think this deserves to be rebutted because it's important to know that the costs of nuclear do not go down just because you have a small plant. The risks do not go down. The dangers are still ever present and are extremely expensive. That's why nuclear plants have become so large, because they are not cost effective unless they have scale of magnitude. And by making them small, you actually ensure that the costs are going to be even greater. So small is it is a public relations campaign, which is basically being recycled by the nuclear industry. And it is a false choice to think that we have to choose between nuclear and fossil fuels. We actually have renewables which far undershoot the costs now of both fossil fuels and nuclear, and this is the technology of the future that is safe and sustainable and affordable.
I think, Claudia and Jasmine, you did raise your hands. Do you want to rebut, or was that like a temporary? Okay, because Chase.
I just want to finish with this. I worked for years in the maritime shipping industry, and maritime shipping is one of the areas where we create lots of pollution in the world. We cannot put a windmill onto a container ship, but we can put a nuclear-powered container ship out in our seas that would be able to move products from one area of the world to the other without putting any carbon into the atmosphere. And so there are applications for nuclear technology that could absolutely curb the climate change crisis. Even if you don't want to build nuclear power plants, you can nuclearize our shipping fleets, and you would save tons and tons of carbon from being spewed into the atmosphere and actually have us having cleaner air to breathe. And also, products will be able to get to our doors a lot cheaper if we utilize a nuclear fleet.
You'll still be stuck with the waste.
Lars, I believe you wanted to jump in.
Yes. So I am calling for an energy race, actually. And part of that is abolishing the Nuclear Regulatory Commission because they are stifling innovation. We've taken 40 years to build a nuclear power plant in America. France only takes 6 to 8 years. France is the leading country in carbon reduction in emissions, and that's because they are building nuclear power plants at a frenzy. China has a plan to put 200 nuclear power plants underfoot within the coming years, and America is going to get left behind. If we do not start reducing our energy costs, if we do not start embracing new technologies, and not just nuclear, all kinds of technologies, we should be allowing innovation in America. This will drive jobs to America. This will drive down the cost of energy. It'll reduce inflation. There's all kinds of technologies that are coming out, thorium salt reactors. There's reactors that basically eat the waste and use up 98% of the waste. People are still thinking of nuclear energy from 50 years ago. Technology advances. We're not still having big computer plants that we have to feed with little cards. We have computers in our pockets today. We can do this. America has the ingenuity to do it, and I think that America can do it. Thank you.
There was the debate you were looking for.
From PFAs to nuclear.
All right, moving on. Question on economic policy now. Foreign nations have joined together to establish alternative financial systems, specifically BRICS. How do you plan to mitigate the potential impact on the value and relevance of the American currency? What specific strategies will you employ to maintain the dominance of the U.S. dollar in global trade and finance amidst shifting geopolitical dynamics? And how do you counter the popularity of BRICS by engaging with foreign leaders who are trying to join BRICS? Lars, we're starting with you.
Yeah. So this has to do with all the tariffs that we're putting on people. The ways that we engage in trade around the world are forcing other countries to band together to try to create alternative currencies, because America has a dominance on the currency because we are the world reserve currency, and we stifle other countries and we keep countries out based on our political beliefs. And so it's no wonder that they're going and trying to make new currencies to get around our hegemony. What we need to do is we need to stop all the foreign trade wars that we got going on, because foreign trade wars lead to real wars. We need to be embracing trade with other countries so that they don't have to turn to other financial instruments. And look, we are destroying our own dollar because we have printed $34 trillion worth of debt. Okay, and that reduces the standard of living for all Americans, and it means that the dollar isn't as worth as much around the world. If you are a person that owes $10 million and you are only making $100,000 a year, you're not a good investment. And that's what's going on with America right now. Other countries see this, and they're slowly divesting themselves of the dollar because they see that we're not a good investment, because we are not handling our finances. We do not spend our money wisely or efficiently here in America. And I bet everybody on this stage would agree that we should spend the money that America takes from its citizens more wisely and more efficiently. And we can do that by canceling the bank's credit cards. We've got to rein in the Fed and stop the endless printing of money that is devaluing the dollars in your pockets and reducing your standard of living. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. Claudia, you're up next.
End capitalism before it ends us. I mean, it is the basis and the foundation of this country to dominate, to have control, to have hegemony over the rest of the world. U.S. imperialism thrives on that. And so BRIC is not the problem, U.S. imperialism is. That is the problem. And so we need to understand that the capitalist system in which we live is in crisis, recession, depression, inflation, every 4 to 7 years. Every 4 to 7 years is a bubble that bursts. And we will continue to have that under capitalism. And so when we're talking about an economic policy that works for the majority of people in this country, is not a capitalist economy. That's the policy. We need to abolish capitalism as it is and as it exists. Despite what Biden says about the economy and how people feel about the economy, the majority of people in this country are suffering. We have, again, over 160 million people who live in or near poverty, 800 people who die every day in the wealthiest country in the world because of poverty-related issues. As a socialist solution is to take back the wealth produced by the workers in companies like Amazon, ExxonMobil, Walmart, nationalize and socialize that wealth. We want to be able to have value in the dollar in the United States of America. It doesn't need to dominate the rest of the world.
Thank you, Claudia. Jasmine, moving on to you.
People, I just want you to know, economists work for rich people. So they say, usually, most people say what their boss wants them to say. I very rarely find an individual that will go, my paycheck or my values. Some of them exist, I'm right here, but not everyone is me. One of the things that we need to do is to end our relationship with the Fed. That is not a government agency. You've just been duped into believing that it is. It is a private company that is messing with our lives. The other thing is, Americans need an index living wage. And I'm going to simplify that for people because our education system has failed a lot of us. If Walmart raises their prices, they must raise their wages. They cannot keep making things go higher and higher. And Wendy's, you in that surge pricing? F you, man. I think that it's time that we give Americans universal basic income. If you go to JasmineSherman.com, you will see how much you get untaxed per month and per year. And it goes to everyone over the age of 16. Another thing that we need to do is create jobs in communities where people live. That starts with mixed walkable neighborhoods. That starts with renewable energy. That starts with us stopping our pursuit of imperialism. We don't need to be the global dominator. Your money should be able to work right here where you live. I understand that the question was about how I make things nicey-nicey with other countries. And the way we do that is to take our boot off of their necks and renegotiate trade deals. If you go to JasmineSherman.com, you can see my foreign policy is posted. There's an audio feature if you don't have time to read it. We have to start taking back the right way to live. I know what was done in the past, but I don't follow suit with people who don't look like me. And you know what Trump and Biden look like. It's time for younger people. It's time for marginalized people to lead. It is time for us to put money back in Americans' pockets, and they can't afford for us to wait and make a commission.
Thank you, Jasmine. Jill.
So the shift in economic productivity and resources and wealth has moved from the U.S. and NATO to the BRICS. And the BRICS, in fact, is enlarging. It's no longer just 4 or 5 nations. It's now also Saudi Arabia and a number of other countries. So this is part of the U.S. empire that has ended its last days. And in part, that's that all empires kind of come to an end of their term. Our empire is overextended. Our empire is very busy expending half of our budget, our congressional budget, on destroying other nations. We lose wars enormously. We have invested some $21 trillion since 9/11 in several wars in Libya and Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq, and they're not over yet. In fact, Joe Biden now is bombing 3 additional countries in order to maintain Israel's right to conduct genocide. We are expanding war and bombing Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. And I think it's Israel that's bombing Yemen. Are we bombing Yemen as well? All right, well, there you go. 4 countries, as well as Iranian targets outside of Iran. And Iran now has a mutual defense treaty with Russia. So we are absolutely playing with fire and risking a nuclear conflagration here by our proclivity of this aging, obsolete, and dangerous empire, which is in its last days. And it's very important that we shift from being a war economy to and a financialized economy on behalf of Wall Street that is reaping the majority of the profit and the benefit to being an economy for working people.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. Chase, we'll finish with you.
So the question on BRICS and how we can strengthen our dollar, the first thing we can do to strengthen our dollar is insist that our government quit printing trillions of dollars out of thin air to pay for debts and deficits we can't afford. We have to insist on a balanced budget, that we stop that practice. But why is that practice happening? It's because of the Fed, the Federal Reserve. And so I'm somebody who's always supported auditing the Fed so that people can see what's been happening there and then eventually ending the Fed. Let's tie our money back to something that's sound, whether it's gold, silver, saffron, whatever it is, something that has some sort of intrinsic value as opposed to the fiat currency system we've been currently have. That will strengthen our dollar. How do we improve our working relationship with other nations? Remove trade wars and these tariffs. Tariffs, by the way, are not paid by China. They're paid by each and every consumer in this country, but it creates further economic strife amongst 2 nations. I was a Democrat 16 years ago, and I supported a guy and voted for him because he said, we're going to end wars, we're going to close Guantanamo, we're going to stop drones, and we're actually going to talk to our enemies without precondition. I was excited to vote for that candidate. He got elected, and he walked back from every single promise he made. I can tell you, a libertarian will make those promises and follow through if we're ever elected. If we're ever blessed with the opportunity to support peace through diplomacy, ending the war machine, taking the boot off the necks of so many people around the world with our war machine, we would absolutely get it done starting on day 1. We don't just talk the talk, we actually want to walk the walk if we can get elected. And that involves really treating people with common respect, common grace. And that starts with trading with people through true free trade. Tear down all trade barriers, and let's see which economies can function in a truly free market. And that's what I would like to see. But it starts with strengthen our dollar by stopping to printing trillions of dollars. It starts by ending the war machine that is killing so many people, including women and children all over the world, with our taxpayer dollars, with our bombs have little American flags on them as they drop. And it starts with actually engaging in real diplomacy with other nations and not being afraid to be in the room with somebody who might disagree with you, because that's cowardice, and that is what our government has done since 9/11, and they will continue to do it so long as Republicans and Democrats occupy the White House.
Thank you, Chase. Rebuttals for those that are permitted. Yes, Jasmine.
You need money in your pocketbook today. Universal basic income puts money back in your wallet. You need tax changes. We take too much money out of your paycheck. My policies, all of them that you can read or have read to you. You could even schedule a meeting with me via my, oh, I sound weird. You can even schedule a meeting with me via my link tree on my website. You need things back in your wallet now. You do not need us taking your money or playing in your face about when you will get your funds. You need them now. A vote for Sherman is a vote for money in your pocketbook. I'm going to stop talking because y'all can't hear me anyway. Let's do it.
I believe Claudia's hand went up. We're going to hold for 1 second.
About a hand for the candidates.
Mics for busty people.
Say that again. Jasmine, we're going to let you finish if you have more to add.
I mean, thank you. I know you guys couldn't hear me before, but at the end of the day, you need universal basic income. We can afford to pay $95 billion anytime other countries need it. We have the funds to treat Americans right. Our elected officials currently make the choice not to treat you well. We have to end our abusive relationship with the government. Any politician that can't tell you what they're going to do for you tomorrow is a politician that is wasting your time. That's it.
That sound was better. Thank you for that. We're going to go to Claudia, and then we'll come to you, Lars.
I insist that we have to go to the root of the problem, which is capitalism. We need to abolish the Federal Reserves. No one votes for them, and they control our ability to live or die in this country. So it needs to be an abolished institution. We need to be able to seize the money to be able to provide that universal income to people. So have a democracy within these workplaces where people can actually decide how they will utilize their profit and how they will actually engage in contributing the wealth that they produce. And so we have to go to the root of the problem. We need to end capitalism. We need to build an alternative solution. Time is running out. People are fed up, and it's time.
I wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about cryptocurrency and the opportunity to take on a different type of currency. We need to allow American citizens, if the government is going to continue to steal our money through printing of massive debt, we need to allow for alternative currencies to be developed. One of these might be Bitcoin or another type of cryptocurrency. And additionally to that, I want to voice my concern about central bank digital currencies, which are on the horizon. And these central bank digital currencies make the Fed look like a little child when it comes to the authoritative nature of these central bank digital currencies, because it will allow the government to surveil each and every transaction that you do, and they will know what you're doing in real time. And we cannot allow central bank digital currencies to take effect. And finally, we have to abolish the IRS altogether, because this is the way that the government is stealing your money. We need to allow citizens to keep 100% of their paycheck so that they have the money to pay for all the expensive things that the government has created. Thank you.
All right, moving on to our next question. National unity. This is very fitting to have such a diverse group of individuals. It's been 15 years Free and Equal Elections been hosting presidential debates. It's a dream come true to see this group together tonight. So national unity. With growing public distrust and disillusionment of the two-party system, more Americans are now registered as independents than as Democrats or Republicans. This free and equal stage reflects the diversity of political thought leaders that Americans are turning to in hopes of uniting our country. Given that many of your policies represent a divergence from politics as usual in the United States, could you provide a contemporary example of how your policies are successfully implemented overseas? Why should the U.S. consider adopting them? And how would you adapt these policies to unite a country of 300 million people? Jasmine.
An example of how my radical policies would work is the same way Israel is living rent-free on your dime, you could do it for yourself here. Americans already shell out enough in taxes to provide you with quality housing, quality health care, quality education. It is time that we actually utilize that for Americans. I do think that this isn't a race to emulate other countries. I think the whole point of being someone who is a third-party candidate is to not continue the status quo. I do not see the purpose in preserving houselessness, hunger, starvation. Like, those are things that are happening not just in Gaza, but right here. We have people who are malnutritioned right here in the United States. I understand that the focus is people are worried about too much socialism. What are you going to lose? What are you going to lose? But you don't have to lose anything for someone to get a bigger piece of the pie if we stop funneling all our money overseas to bad guys and to corporations that don't pay taxes. Some of you right now are filing your taxes, and Amazon doesn't pay taxes, they receive tax money. And that's messed up. We don't need to continue what we've been doing. We need to do something new, something that is going to stop our generations, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, from suffering. We already know what generations who have been in charge forever, or at least all 38 years I've been here, are going to get us. We've seen what older people do to our environment. We see what they do when they lead corporations. It's not millennials that are CEOs tearing down rainforests. It's older people. And we don't need more of them in our government. We need an age cap and term limits. We need to put Americans first. We need to make sure that instead of emulating other countries, we go ahead and do something different and be a leader for positivity for once. That's it.
Chase.
So a great thing that libertarians always talk about is wanting to end the drug war. And there's a fantastic country in Europe that can actually bear that. That is the nation of Portugal. They used to have the highest IV drug use in the continent of Europe. Because of this, they had huge rates of HIV and hepatitis. And what they decided to do is, instead of fighting a crackdown drug war like we do in the United States, they decriminalized all drugs. They destigmatized people using drugs. So if you want to get help, there's access and avenues to get help for addiction. And also it destigmatizes use, so that if you fear that you have an unquality product, for instance, if you're a user of drugs and you fear fentanyl, you can take it to a pharmacist. They'll test it for you for a small fee, and you can know the quality of the product you're using. Not that I want anybody to use heroin, but I want people to stop dying of overdoses due to fentanyl being mixed into heroin. And so that's something that we can look to as a real-world example. And a way to improve upon that is to quit using the government-sponsored addiction programs that Portugal does and rely on direct and mutual aid within our own communities, because they can better care for our communities than some centrally planned government program. But let's get back to the idea of national unity. You know, I think a lot of Americans are, like I said, sick and tired of being sick and tired. They see this continued two-party system, this morass that we've been going through, and they want something better. And when they see alternatives on stages like this, they see somebody they might want to vote for, and then voters try to shame them by calling those people spoilers. My message to you right now is we are not the spoilers. The spoiler is the two-party system that doesn't give us ranked choice voting, approval voting, or any other way to make our elections more representative of the populations they serve. They are happy to have your election spoiled if it means maintaining their power base, preventing new voices from rising up and challenging them. And I'm somebody who's running for president to put that new voice forward and to challenge the two-party system to their face and bring millions of new Americans to this mission, to tear down the duopoly once and for all. And the Libertarian Party is poised to be on nearly every ballot, if not every ballot in the United States, and we will be that vehicle for change if you allow us to be. Tear down the two-party system. That is how we bring people around together in this country, when we stop dividing them with a false binary that is the Republican and Democratic Party.
Wonderful. Thanks, Claudia. Or please, Claudia.
There's two things in that question. There's national unity and examples abroad. I think we don't need to go abroad to think about socialism. The wealthy have socialism. They don't have to fight for health care. They don't have to fight for housing. They don't have to struggle against the military-industrial complex. They don't have to do any of that. They have access to their civil rights, and they have access to their human rights. The majority of people in this country do not, though. 99% of the population of this country do not have everything that they need to be able to survive. And so when we're thinking about socialism, let's think about socializing, redistributing, reorganizing. That is what we are proposing. And it's something that could be done in this country if we're able to take back the money that has been kidnapped by the billionaires and the millionaires in this country. So we don't need to go too far. Every socialist experiment that has ever existed has been invaded, has been sanctioned, and has been fought against. There's a reason for that, because it provides a path for the majority of people in the world. The billions of people in the world that are at the mercy of five individuals that own more of the wealth in this world than the majority of people in this world. And so when we're talking about socialism, that's what we mean, taking back what is ours. The many who produce the wealth should control the wealth. When we're talking about national unity, we all agree that we have the basic human right to education, that we have the basic human right to housing, to health care, that we should not have to pay to be able to access those human necessities. Therefore, let's find our common ground in the fight of defending what our human and civil rights are. And if you are part of the 1% that has all those rights, then you should grow a little bit of a soul and be able to understand that there's money that you've made on the backs of working class people that are coming back for what is theirs.
Common ground, that's where it's at. Lars, please.
Thank you. So I believe America started out with the right idea, an idea of limited government. But over the years, we've exploded our bureaucracy and we've grown more and more. And one of the things that I say is that the more government we have, the more mediocrity is born. And the more government we have, the more mediocre we become. And government just seems to grow and grow. Have you ever heard about layoffs coming to Washington? That's what I'd like to bring to Washington. I'd like to see an across-the-board 10% or more cut in Washington and start getting our expenses under control, right? Look, unity in America right now, we have the media pitting neighbor against neighbor. We have government coercion. We have what is essentially one group of people taking the moral high ground and telling another group of people how to behave. And it flips and flops depending on whether the Democrats or the Republicans are in control. Everybody feels that they are being oppressed by government, that they are being coerced by government. We need to get government out of people's lives, let people live their lives as they best see fit. You know how to live your life better than anyone in the government. Why do we keep handing the government the ability to tell us how to live our lives? Down to micromanaging what straws we can use and what forks we can use and what kind of paint we can put on our house or that sort of thing. We've got to let government get out of the way, let people live their lives, and this will bring unity. We see it. We saw it in the BLM riots, and we saw it in the January 6th stuff. Everybody in America is pissed off right now. They're feeling disillusioned at the way the system is working because the system is completely rigged against them. I have 37 pieces of policy on my website to unrig the system and stop this division in America and bring people back together again. And part of that is our economic disparity. We need to lift people up so that people aren't so pissed off. Desperate people do desperate things. We got to end desperate people in America and lift them up. Thank you.
Thank you.
There were no
Phil.
BLM riots.
Phil? Well, everybody answer the question, then we can have rebuttal.
I apologize.
Sure. No worries. Jill.
I think the idea of lifting people up is very important, and unfortunately it doesn't happen by itself, and it doesn't happen by simply allowing corporations to run roughshod because power tends to concentrate itself. We see this over and over again through history. So, the question is not, to my mind, obtrusive government or, utopia. It's like, how do we exist as a society? If you're in a household, you have rules and you have procedures for things. And you can think of society as sort of that magnified over. We need to have government that is not corrupted by the power of corporations. And one thing that the American people agree on, among many things actually, is getting big money out of politics so that we can begin to have policies which are rational, which work, and which people broadly support. And there's, roughly 90% or more of the American public that supports campaign finance reform, public funding of elections so that we can get big money out of politics and get the people back in. It's been studied ad nauseum, and we know that public policy is basically driven by corporate money. And left to its own devices, it will continue to do that. Left to its own devices, it is currently driving us over the cliff. One area where that is happening very quickly is healthcare. And we know in terms of programs that are working around the world, the United States is the only country that does not provide healthcare as a human right through a Medicare for all type system, which we desperately need. We have in the audience here tonight someone who lost his son actually to insurance company behavior, and lost his son basically because his drug policy, his pharmaceuticals were canceled because of a $20 fee that was late. He then lost his mental health drugs and wound up with tragedy. This is repeated over and over again. We need Medicare for all right now.
Any rebuttals?
It's not really a rebuttal.
Or expansion?
It's an expansion.
Please.
I'm sick of us pretending that politicians who are unmelanated get up here and on stages and vilify marginalized voices. There were no BLM riots. We have proof that that's not how that happened. We have so many politicians that say things flippantly and they pretend, oh, I care about marginalized communities, and then you poop on them in the next breath. We have to stop doing this, and you have to stop voting for people that demonstrate that they don't give a damn about you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Claudia. Any more? We're going to move on to rapid fire questions here. And I'll begin on this one. We're going to answer yes, no, left to right for the questions here. Do you support pardoning any or all of these individuals? Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, Ross Ulbricht, and Leonard Peltier. Are there any other people besides the ones we just listed that you would want to pardon? Yes, no?
Yes, I agree with that, to pardon all those people.
Great. Claudia?
Free all political prisoners.
Thank you.
Yes, and among the many who are incarcerated for political reasons, the man who basically identified that drones kill the wrong person 10 times more often than they kill their actual targets. He, too, is rotting in a high-security prison now.
Right. Jasmine?
Yes, Daniel Hale, thank you.
Daniel Hale. Jasmine?
Yes, I'm abolishing prisons and giving people who need help house arrest so they can get the treatment they need with our universal health care policy. I'm letting all of these people out so they can begin thriving in this country.
Chase?
Absolutely. It'd be the first thing I would do if I were elected president right after I take the oath would be pardoning all 4 of those. I would also pardon anybody who is a truth teller, a whistleblower, anybody who's currently in prison for any crime to which there is no victim, such as drug crimes, sex crimes, or any other crime to which there's no discernible victim. We need to release these people out of prisons because that is why we suffer so much problems in this country.
Thank you. And we're going to 2-minute closing statements, beginning with Lars from left to right.
Okay, thank you very much for having me tonight. We've talked a lot about how the system is rigged. We've heard from all the panelists here, the presidential candidates here, and all of them have said that in one way or another that the system is rigged. Like I said, I have 37 pieces of policy on my website, lars24.com, to unrig the system. We didn't get to unrigging our elections, which I think is one of the main things that all the people on this stage have to deal with. Ballot access laws, gerrymandering, winner-take-all laws. The government is corrupt, and the government does rig our elections. I have a Voters' Bill of Rights, which is my signature piece of policy. It is nonpartisan. It intends to restore the integrity and faith in our election system, because if we do not have free and fair elections, if our people do not trust our elections, we have an unfunctioning republic. Our republic is cracking and it is unfunctional. We have to restore this. So some of the pieces of this policy obviously is ballot access for all, regardless of party or affiliation. It should be equal for me as a Democrat or a Republican, a Libertarian. Everybody should have equal access to the ballot. We see this with RFK being taken off the ballots. The duopoly rigs the system against everybody. We have a piece for transparency for any citizen to audit the vote of Americans. We have the ability to audit the machine code of all the machines so that we all know what's going on, because even if we had free and fair elections right now, who would know? It allows the restoration of voting rights for criminals who have served their time. It allows for a paper receipt to be printed at the end of your voting so that you can match up to the government that your vote has been counted properly, so that we can restore some integrity to our system. Please, look, if there's nothing else you take from tonight, go look at my Voters' Bill of Rights, get it to your congressmen, get it to your assemblymen, get it to everybody that is in power, because we need to unrig our election systems. Nobody on this panel is going to be able to change anything unless we can get elected to office. And right now, the system is so rigged, none of us can make it.
Thank you, Lars. Claudia.
I'd like to take my 2 minutes to say you could check out votesocialist2024.com, but I want to take my 2 minutes to talk about Aaron Bushnell, who did more for the redemption of the people in this country than the political ruling class has done in the last 5 months. I want to take these minutes to talk about the fact that we have the U.S. government and people who have been silenced for the last 5 months have been complicit in the killing of over 30,000 people, most of which have been children and women. We need to stop financing genocide, not only in Palestine, occupied by Israel, but in every corner of the world, in El Congo, in Sudan, and everywhere else the United States has its fingers and hands on. That is not self-defense. That is the extermination campaign and ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people that has been happening for the last 75 years. And we salute the sacrifice of Aaron Bushnell. We will continue the call and the work for the total liberation of Palestine, for Palestinian people's right to return and rebuild. That is the type of system that we need to build in this country. In order to do so, we need to uproot the capitalist system. We need to end the U.S. empire, and we need to build a socialist society that is on the basis of collaboration, of solidarity, and the respect of the sovereignty of other countries and people.
Powerful. Jill.
So we are at a historic tipping point right now. We are looking at the last days of empire and oligarchy, and we're looking at all the crises that go with it. We're looking at crushing inequality, where 3 billionaires in this country have the wealth and power of the lower 50% of the population, where in fact half of that population, that 50%, has exactly 2% of resources. This is the world that we get if we allow corporations to rule the day through the current system of government that we have, which is basically bought and paid for by powerful corporations, billionaires, bankers, etc. So we have crushing inequality. We have endless war. Currently, the United States is not only conducting many bombing campaigns, we are actually in 85 countries conducting anti-terror, so-called anti-terror operations as a continuation of basically our 9/11 policy. And we are approaching potential nuclear conflict, not only in the Middle East, but also in Ukraine and then potentially in China. Know that one nuclear submarine alone holds the equivalent of 4,000 Hiroshima bombs, which is enough to throw us into substantial nuclear winter that could eliminate half of the population of the entire country. Our leaders are entirely clueless about this, and they are extremely reckless, criminally reckless, and we have a climate crisis which is exploding right under our noses. It's so critical that we put other options on the table, that we be allowed to debate, to educate people so that everyone knows we are all in the target hairs of this incredibly reckless and predatory system, whether you call it end-stage capitalism, whether you call it corporatism, it doesn't matter. But we are all very much in the target hairs, and we cannot afford to look the other way. We need change. We need it now. Our campaign will be the one pro-worker, anti-war, anti-genocide, and climate emergency campaign on the ballot across the country.
Jill.
Check us out.
Uplifting. Jasmine.
I didn't step on this stage tonight to play in your face, and I'm not going to stand here and act like the ratchet effect of the duopoly hasn't taken us so far back that the only remaining solution is to do a national reset. So let's reset. We as citizens aren't going to stand here and deny the truth in front of us. Our tax dollars are spending money to fund a war in foreign lands and support several genocides. 60% of Americans want ceasefire, but we really just need to end the occupation of lands that don't belong to us. I do think that people don't understand. We have to make sure that Americans can meet their basic needs. People are not acknowledging your rent is due tomorrow. And most people can't afford to put food on their table. Home ownership is non-existent for young people. Houselessness is rising. And even though we pretend that it's not a thing, the fastest population is the elderly losing their homes because of scams that predatory lenders use. You have not been living your best lives. I know it, the people on the stage know it, and anybody who is in office right now knows it. And you notice they're not trying to change it. I'm not a politician, but I am running for the highest office of the land, and I recognize that. I also recognize that I am standing every day beside you. I am acknowledging that it's LGBTQIA2S rights, it's disability rights, it's reparations, it's land back, it's free Palestine, the Sudan, Congo, and Tigray. It is time for us to showcase that we are going to do something instead of just talking about bullshit. You need to vote Sherman Blue Bear if you actually want change. You need to vote Sherman Blue Bear in 2024 because unlike Lars, I do know that a third-party candidate can win. All you have to do is show up, show out, and vote. Let's reset. I'm done.
Love your answer. And veterans, too. That's beautiful. Chase.
So I want to say thank you for the opportunity for us to get to speak on stage tonight. This is an opportunity that would never be afforded to us if the Democrats and Republicans were to control this process of this election. And so I want to reject the duopoly, and I believe the best way to do that is with a message of freedom and trust. freedom for each and every individual to live their lives as they see fit, so long as they're living that life in peace. And if they can do that, that's because we all can trust each other, that we can determine for ourselves the best way to go about our lives. And that is a message that will resonate with millions of American voters who are sick and tired of being controlled one way or another by an overly intrusive, abusive federal government. Now, I don't believe the solutions of the past will fix ourselves. Political philosophies and structures that failed in the 20th century and led to tens of millions of people dying of hunger will not solve homelessness and help people in this country. What will is returning people's power back to themselves and not insisting that central planners can make that decision for you. I would return that power back to each and every individual to decentralize the power across this country so that we can form our own mutual aid organizations, direct organizations that can help our fellow man. I believe that there are a lot of people out there who want to help each other, but know deep down that the way the government is set up and the way the government distributes that help isn't working for people. They'll tax you $1 and they'll give you a dime. That is what central planning government can give you. Instead, we should decentralize everything about our lives, remove the war machine from our lives, stop fighting wars overseas with our name and killing innocent people with our taxpayer dollars, stop abusing people in the criminal justice system, stop abusing people at our border who just want to come here to work, start giving people real opportunity by removing the power out of the hands of government and returning it back to each and every individual. I sincerely believe that we can have a better America if we just trusted each other and loved each other a little bit more and took the power out of those with a badge and a gun to do harm in our name. And that is a message I want to put out there for each and every American. Go to votechaseoliver.com, check out our platform, and I'm so thankful for my team. We can announce today that we have donors in all 50 states, hundreds of volunteers, and we are the best vehicle to challenge the duopoly in 2024. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, that's a real debate. This has been an amazing evening. Thank you so much to everyone who participated tonight. The poll to determine the winner of this debate is now live at freeandequal.org. You have 72 hours to vote, so please share what you thought of tonight's event. Since 2008, the Free and Equal Elections Foundation has worked hard to make sure every citizen is fully informed about his or her, they or them, political choices at the local, state, and national levels. We are a nonpartisan 501c3 nonprofit organization. That means we need your help to continue our mission. Head to our website, freeandequal.org, where you can sign up and see how you can work with us. And you can donate to make more debates possible. Please become a part of this grassroots movement to bring more voices and more choices to our elections. On behalf of Caitlin, Jason, and myself, thank you so much again, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event.